Hello everyone, my name is Arnav, and for my teaching video I decided to explore the concept and practice of ecotourism. To give you a little context, I am an international student from India, which is a developing country in the southeast of Asia. The tourism industry in India is a major economic driver and contributes a significant amount to the country's GDP every year. However, ecotourism wasn't always a practice that was adopted by the country. It is only in the past few decades that it has become a major concern. For example, a couple of decades ago, the Asiatic lion population in the Gir National Forest in the state of Gujarat and the Royal Bengal tiger population both had dwindled down to a dangerously low number. However, later on in the video, we will see how India, among other countries, is adopting ecotourism and conservation practices to help save these endangered species. Okay, so what exactly is ecotourism? Ecotourism is a sustainable form of natural resource-based tourism that focuses primarily on experiencing and learning about nature, which is ethically managed to be low impact, non-consumptive, and locally oriented. It typically occurs in natural areas and should contribute to the conservation or preservation of such areas. The International Ecotourism Society defines ecotourism as a form of responsible travel to natural areas that conserve the environment, sustain the well-being of local people, and lastly, but most importantly, involve interpretation and education. Ecotourism is about uniting conservation, communities, and sustainable travel. This means that those who participate in and market ecotourism activities should adopt the following steps to implement ecotourism. Firstly, minimize physical, social, behavioral, and psychological impacts of their operations. Next, they should build environmental and cultural awareness and respect, followed by their efforts to provide positive experiences for both visitors and hosts and provide direct financial benefits for conservation. It is also their responsibility to generate financial benefits for both local people and private industries. The ability to deliver memorable interpretative experiences to visitors that help raise sensitivity to host countries, political, environmental, and social climates is a key factor as well. They should also focus on their ability to design, construct, and operate low-impact facilities. Lastly, they should definitely recognize the rights and spiritual beliefs of the indigenous people in their community and work in partnership with them to create empowerment. Now, I'm going to play a short 2-minute video that will help you understand tourism and break down the 3 basic principles that it comprises of.
What is ecotourism? Ecotourism is a term used to describe travel to areas where active steps are taken to conserve and protect the environment and improve the economic and social well-being of local people. Ecotourism can be found in many different parts of the world. This term is often used in relation to tourist visits to natural environments, such as rainforests. It can also be applied to managed or man-made environments, such as urban areas. There are 3 key principles to ecotourism. The first key principle is to involve local communities in the development of ecotourism. It is important that communities maintain control over the level and kind of tourism they want in their land. Money from tourism projects should be invested in the communities who are hosting tourists, rather than just to operators based outside the area. Infrastructure projects that are built to serve and encourage tourism, such as new facilities, accommodation, roads or electricity, should also be built to benefit local communities as well as visitors. The second principle is to reduce the negative impact on the environment. Ecotourism often involves visits to remote and environmentally sensitive natural areas such as forests, dunes or glacial areas. Visitors undertaking these trips should try to make sure that they follow any rules regarding litter and wildlife disturbance, and ensure that personal use of resources such as water is sustainable. Venues that host ecotourism activities, such as hotels and restaurants, should ensure sustainable practices such as using renewable energy and minimizing waste. The third principle is to respect the rights of local people. Many tourists visit a location in order to learn about local cultures and traditions. The people with the greatest knowledge about a destination are the people who actually live there, and ecotourism ventures should be managed by local communities using their experiences and expertise to promote local cultures and traditions.
Now let's take a look at a couple of countries that have made strides in developing and implementing various ecotourism practices. In India, a large part of tourism consists of wildlife tourism. This refers to people going to experience the extremely remote parts of the country and stay in the dense forest and see the way of life that the local people have, and most importantly, get a glimpse of the famous Asiatic lions and the Royal Bengal tigers, who are very difficult to sight. A few decades ago, the government realized that what a huge economic driver this is and started to publicize it. However, in the process of focusing on the economic benefit, the well being of locals, animals, and the habitat of these animals in those remote areas was starting to get neglected, which led to the whole process becoming really commercialized. This was really unethical as it was affecting the daily lives of both the animals and the locals. However, as the government and various tourism corporates realized that they were setting out to destroy the very thing that was benefiting them, and when they grew a little bit of a consciousness, they decided to implement ecotourism practices such as prohibition of poaching and deforestation in these national parks, contributing a part of the economic benefit to the preservation of these ecosystems and implementation of strict operational guidelines for the resorts in these sensitive areas. Ecotourism in Costa Rica is one of the key activities of tourism industry in the country. By the early 1990s, Costa Rica became known as the poster child for ecotourism. This country is among many developing nations that look to ecotourism as a way of cashing in on the growing demand for this popular trend of travel. Ecotourism draws many tourists to visit the extensive national parks and protected areas around the country. Costa Rica was a pioneer in this type of tourism, and the country is recognized as one of the few with true ecotourism. The environmental benefits of ecotourism in Costa Rica have been far reaching. Initially, this was not the case, but over time, ecotourism has come to be seen as a way to preserve natural areas throughout Costa Rica. The interpretation of ecotourism as a means to conservation has resulted in various initiatives. The rapid expansion of Costa Rica's national park system in the 1970s and its expansion to include 70 protected areas covering 21% of the nation's territory make up some of these initiatives. Costa Rica has turned to ecotourism as its key to economic development. Such phenomenal growth has made tourism the leading source of foreign exchange in Costa Rica. The International Ecotourism Society, who is accredited for giving us a definition of ecotourism in the earlier half of the video, is the oldest and largest non-profit organization in the world dedicated to making ecotourism a tool for sustainable tourism development worldwide. It was founded by Megan Epler Wood in 1990. Since 2003, Miss Wood's firm, Epler Wood International, has devoted itself to aiding some of the poorest countries in the world with sustainable tourism development. Based on what I gather from my research and from reading interviews that Miss Wood has had in the past few years, 20 years ago, travelers were just beginning to think about the environmental impacts of their tours. Ecotourism became a catch-all term in 1990s for making travel environmentally beneficial, and it was frequently cited as the fastest growing phenomenon in the world. Journalists tended to run with any reasonable stats they were given on this growing market, but the fact was that truly responsible travelers were a rare breed. It has taken 20 years to take this phenomenon mainstream, and I hope this trend continues from here on out. In closing remarks, all I want to say is that ecotourism boils down to one simple thing: being considerate. And when I say this, I mean being considerate not only to the other humans, from different cultures and backgrounds, but also to animals. We humans often forget that we share the earth with these animals and should respect their habitat just like they respect our home and try to live harmoniously with them.